Hello class, it is so nice to see you again through this video format. Thank you so much, Maggie, for kicking off this presentation with a little bit about Islamic theology. I'm going to continue into talking about key questions of engagement. Basically, if you were going to a Muslim community center, if you were going internationally to a Muslim area, or if you were just speaking to your neighbor who is Muslim, these are some key things to keep in the back of your head about a Muslim's point of view on Christianity and then some other religions and the church as well, and America as well, and how they feel about being American citizens. I got a lot of my information from the Muslim Community Center in Chicago. I had called them and interviewed them for a little bit. The man that I spoke with specifically, his name's Saif, and then I additionally used a few online articles just to make sure that I wasn't getting one person's perspective. The first question is, who do they say Jesus is? Jesus is a prophet of Islam. He's mentioned more than 25 times in the Quran, and he fulfilled the law of Moses. That was his purpose. And they believe that he was not the son of God, but he was a very important prophet. Muslims believe in one God. They believe in Allah. And they also believe that Christians are polytheistic because we believe in three gods. We believe in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, all being God. So they actually believe that Christians are polytheistic, and that turns them away from Christianity even more because they very highly value their monotheism. The next question I asked him is, how do Muslims feel about other beliefs such as Hinduism, Buddhism, and atheism internationally? He said that in India, there's a lot of conflicts, more specifically between Hindus and Muslims and Buddhists as well. But all over the world, there's that conflict. In Indonesia, there's that same conflict too. He said that they have their philosophy and we have ours. And the conflicts aren't usually about the religions or the philosophies specifically, but it's more about power and trying to gain money and power by gaining more people for themselves. He says that if it were up to him, he would just keep the peace. And then a little bit later in the questions, he mentions Islam's compatibility with science, and I wanted to speak into that a little bit. As a Muslim who believes in science, who's in America, a first world country, right? They believe that Islam is very compatible with science in many ways, similar to how Christians believe that our religion is very compatible with science in many ways. A couple examples of these are the Quran speaks about God continuing to strengthen the heavens, similar how we are aware that the universe is expanding. Another verse in the Quran talks about how that the sky is crucial to protecting the earth, and now we know that the atmosphere protects us from the sun's rays and keeps the oxygen in. They talk very detailed about the development of a human embryo from a book that was written a very long time ago. And so that's very cool to see as they talk about the embryonic development, and it's very compatible with science, and it's very compatible with what we know about the embryonic development today. During the creation story, they also believe in a moment in which God created the heavens and the earth, which would be referred to in the scientific community as the Big Bang. Shifting a little bit away from religion and moving on to focus more on people and the church, I asked first how they feel about the American church, and then stepped out to include the international Christian church. They said that the Muslim Community Center interfaces with many different churches and denominations in Chicago. An example of this is they have Open Mosque Day, where many Christians and pastors will come and evangelists will come and speak to people and learn more about their religion. In the international sense, there's a relationship because they believe that we both believe in Jesus, and that there's actually a lot of similarities between Christianity and Islam. Some of these similarities include Abraham, Noah, the creation story, Jesus's miracles, Moses, and just in general that God sends prophets that are people, and he uses them as a vessel to instruct people. He continued on to talk a little bit about the different translations of the Bible, and he would say things like, no one really knows who Jesus is anymore. And there were different groups at the time of Jesus's death that didn't believe that he was the Son of God, and that this wasn't officially decided until the Council of Nicaea. He also talks about how Christianity isn't mentioned in the Bible, that Christians were called Nazarenes, and that Paul and some other, he called them prophets, as well as the Council of Nicaea, completely changed the beliefs, the belief system of Christianity. He also said that in his personal life, he does have a relationship with the church because he has family members that are Christians themselves, and it took him a long time and a lot of studying, but he eventually came to this specific position right now, being that he is Muslim, but he is okay with Christians, and he wants to keep the peace with Christians. I asked if Muslims in general enjoy speaking to evangelists. He said that the Muslim Community Center doesn't mind them at all. They come to the mosque quite often, and because people in his family are Christians, they'll often talk to them about their faith. He says that he knows Christians believe that their religion is true. They believe that if you're not Christian, that you're doomed, and that they have good intentions. So he actually does enjoy speaking to evangelists. Muslims also have a system of evangelism. They go out into the world and they want to tell people that their main thing is that there is one God, and that God is Allah. He is the ultimate forgiver, and that we know God by his attributes. They go and they talk to all kinds of people all over the world, and they just want to keep the peace just like us. The next question I asked is if Muslims still feel like they are being specifically outcasted or targeted in America. He immediately answered yes, of course, definitely. When the country was built, it was built on a Christian philosophy, and though Muslims came by the thousands and millions through the slave trade, and they were in Spain and they came through that trade, they still feel alienated because of physical appearances, because of religion, and because of their language. It was funny though, he made a joke. He said, our physical appearances alienate us a lot, but really we look more like Jesus and Mary than a lot of Christians do today. And I thought that was funny because it is honestly true, in that they have darker skin and dress more modestly than most Christians today. He continued on to say that religious people in Christianity and other religions will take things away, they will add to the Bible, and they'll change and modernize as the world modernizes. But Islam and Muslims try to submit themselves to the Creator. They always try to go back to the beginning and stay very traditional by their means. So this is where I messed up, because I poorly phrased a question. I said, how would Muslims wish to be treated by Christians or Americans in general? And he responded that Muslims are Americans. And I thought that was so true. And I saw a little bit of my own bias sort of come out in those questions, because he was 100% right. Many Muslims are American, born and raised. They came, once again, I said this earlier, they came by the millions during the slave trade. And he told me that the Civil War, World War I and World War II, there were a ton of Muslims fighting in those wars, and that they just get forgotten sometimes, and they are sort of the forgotten heroes of Americans, and they are still persecuted by their fellow civilians. They're civilians as well. So I changed the question, and I said, what steps do we need to take so American Muslims don't feel like they're persecuted and don't feel like they're outcasts in their own country? And he said we need to create a culture where we treat everyone equally as humans. He said it's very simple. Just smile. Just remember that we all bleed the same, and that even in the United States, there's a lot of anti-Muslim propaganda, just as there is worldwide, and that we need to really be discerning and see that anti-Muslim propaganda and know that they are still human, that they still need to be loved, that they still need to be shown the love of Christ. So there was a lot of really good and interesting information here, but something very specifically that I want you to take away is that he would constantly go back to how similar Christian and Muslims are, how we all believe the same, or how our religions are similar, how our practices are similar, how our books are similar. And I was hoping to challenge you guys with a question of, it's easy to hear that and say, no, we're not. We're very different. There's only one way to heaven, and that is through Jesus Christ. But I want you guys to hear their perspective and think about how we can use this as apologists, as evangelists, to our advantage, and how we could say, you know what, you're right, we are similar, and here are the key differences between us that I really want you to think about. Because I think that it's really important that we focus on the similarities when we develop relationships with people rather than the differences. So thank you so much for listening to me for so long. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about it, and I'm going to pass it off to Martha now. Bye, guys.